It's 8:45pm on Wednesday, the 10th of August 2016, and this is the Cats Whiskers podcast, live. Hello and welcome to another live edition of the Cats Whiskers podcast. My name is John A. Bullard. We'll have all the usual Panthers discussion and, of course, discussion about the Elite League. And we will have a big announcement as well, and that's coming up right now. But first, I'll introduce everyone. To my left is Tina Taylor.
Hello.
And we also welcome Paul Baum.
Hello.
Andy Haywood.
Evening.
And Aaron Lord.
Hello.
Okay, as I mentioned, we have got a big announcement, but first a little introduction.
Changes and face the strain. Changes. Don't tell them to blow up on all of it. Changes and face the strain. Changes. When the shame you've left is up to our next.
So yes, change is coming, and as David Bowie just told us there, we have a big announcement about the podcast for this coming season. From Monday the 12th of September, we will be live 3 times a week with the Cats Whiskers podcast. On Mondays we will have our weekend review, where we look back on all the Panthers weekend games and any of the notable incidents in the Elite League. On Wednesdays, we will bring you the ever-popular Ask TCW podcast, where we will answer your hockey-related questions, and we'll hopefully have a few guests on that one as well. And finally, on Thursday nights, we will have our weekend preview podcast, where we'll look ahead to the weekend games, any notable incidents that's happened in the Elite League, such as Dops reviews and any midweek games that we need to look back on. So, 3 times a week from the start of the new season. We will be starting at 8:45pm every Monday, Wednesday and Thursday. Obviously some may get moved if they clash with games. So a big change for us, a lot of extra podcasts and a lot of extra recording for us to do, but as we've done these live podcasts over the past few weeks, we've decided that it's perhaps the way to go, and also it saves me a shed load of time of editing as well. So, all right, guys, are you all looking forward to it, Paul?
No.
And seriously?
Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
All right, Aaron, because this is your first live podcast, actually, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I've had a busy summer so far, but yeah, I mean, you know, you have to move with the times, and we're trying to be at the forefront of that, so I'm sure it'll be very exciting.
Yeah. Andy?
Yeah, should be fun.
Can you tell your voice?
I know, but I'm in a bad way.
And finally, Tina.
Yeah, well, it's, as everybody has said, move with the times.
Great. We shall, after all that build-up, we shall move on. So we're going to talk about the Panthers since our last podcast 3 weeks ago. A couple of signings for us to discuss. Firstly, Erik Lindhagen was signed from Timrå IK in the Swedish Allsvenskan. A 5'10" 28-year-old Swede is a left shooter and will play defence, but he has spent most of his career as a forward. He's had 255 games in the top Swedish Hockey League. There was a mixed reaction from the fan base, but clearly he has a lot of pedigree. I think there was a lot of confusion about whether he would actually be playing on defence or up front. It seems he will be playing on defence. The scouting report from Elite Prospects describes him as a diminutive two-way centre who can play a solid game at wing and defence as well. Has nice hands and good hockey sense, skates well, but lacks some strength. So, Andy, I'll start with you. How do you see him being used?
No idea, to be brutally honest. I think ultimately he's going to be the versatile player, probably in a similar sort of mould that we saw Jordan Farks and Evan Mosey, where they will start a season in one position and probably end up being moved in a different one, depending on where we need him, basically. Versatility is always handy to have. From a personal standpoint, he seems a touch small to be a defenseman, but then I thought the same about Eric Werner, and we all know how he turned out, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Tina, Eric Werner, one of your favourite players, but how do you see Lindhagen being used?
I think some of that will depend on our final signing. The guy who's coming in, I would probably bank on as signing a defender. I mean, obviously we're going to talk about that a bit more further on, but I think Lindhagen's going to be quite a useful guy, because if we do get some injuries, which is traditional for Panthers of late, then he can be used to cover where he's needed. So I think he's probably... Not that I want to say that we ever, sort of replace like for like, but I think he's probably the closest to a Mosey replacement as we could have had, really.
I mean, he's not scored many points as a forward throughout his career, but he has, as I've said, 255 games in the very, very tough Swedish Hockey League. Paul, do you see him getting points in this league?
You got to hope so, because I think as Andy, Tina have touched on, he's going to be a more of an offensive defenseman rather than just a stay-at-home defenseman. Clearly, with that sort of size, and the fact he's been playing as a forward and a defenseman would seem to hint at that as well. But I mean, I would hope so. I mean, he's got a pretty decent pedigree, so I don't really see why not.
Okay, Aaron?
I think obviously we would be looking to him to get some points on the board. I think you've got to be looking in the same sort of bracket as the two Jeffs from last season, and they obviously both spent some time on the sidelines through injury. But I would be hoping that you're looking at 20 points plus, sort of, hopefully, because as you've said, he's spent some time as a forward most of his career, so I think he'll know where the net is, and it's just all depends on the role that Corey has for him as well.
Okay. The second signing that Panthers announced was just last week, Alex Nikiforuk, who signed from the Fishtown Penguins in DEL2. They have been promoted to the DEL. The 5'8", 30-year-old Canadian is a right shooter and will play as a forward. He scored points throughout his career in Denmark, Italy, Switzerland and Germany. However, the fan base was very much divided by the signing. Some saying not good enough, others saying they think he'll score a lot of points in this league. Tina, I'll start with you. Is the criticism of the signing fair?
The amount of criticism that he's been getting, I think is unfair. It's always unfair when you criticise a guy before he's even arrived. I mean, that's always a bone of contention with I think us on the podcast, to be honest. But I know there are an awful lot of people who are wanting an out-and-out sniper. The guy who's going to put loads of points up and going to find the net every game. I think there's a lot of people still pining for a DAB. So I don't like that he's been criticised before he's arrived, but he's got a fairly decent points rate, and in the DL2 is not too shabby a league where he's coming from. So I would expect him to do all right, personally.
And Aaron, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, not to kind of repeat what Tina's just said, but I do think people were, when it kind of came to obviously fruition that Kolnick wasn't going to return, that they wanted a big, stud signing, and people they want to read NHL, ex-NHLer or in the AHL, and I think, like Tina said, people were possibly expecting that person that was going to put the puck in the net, and he seems like he has the ability to pass it to somebody else to put it in the net, which is great if you think of some of the other people that we have on the roster. Like Lawrence can find the net if he wants to. Obviously, I think a lot of pressure will be on Schultze as well. So I think the difference is just the fact that he's a different type of player to what people were potentially expecting. And I just think, like Tina says, it's a bit harsh to write somebody off straight away when you haven't even seen him, pull on a Panthers jersey. But that's the fan base over the summer, isn't it? They make an assumption up before they've even seen a player play. But that's just today's world, unfortunately.
Andy, do you think Panthers fans expect a bit too much?
Not necessarily that they expect too much, because ultimately, we're in a prime position where we should be able to get, arguably the best sort of players for this league. But what I will say is, and not wanting to, to sort of touch on too much of what's already been said, but people are expecting some sort of stud player. When Kolnick said he wasn't coming back. But you've got to look at the players we've had in the past that have got, ridiculous amounts of AHL games or NHL games and stuff like that. I mean, Bob ran out over 500 AHL games and left halfway through the season. Joe Jensen had 109 AHL games. He was... Can anyone remember Joe Jensen other than the checks ahead in Cardiff?
I can remember it, because the first thing I thought when you said 109 AHL games was how?
Yeah, this is what I mean, and then you have players, again, not wanting to harp on about Evan Mosey, for instance, but, the guy's been absolutely incredible since he came to us. And yet when we signed him, he was the cheap option, he was going to be rubbish, what's the point in having a guy signing him straight out of Holland? It's horses for courses, and at the end of the day, I'd far rather have a player that's putting points up in a league and in a decent league and playing well than having a guy who's putting up no points in a top league but playing 100 odd games and them expecting them to be your superstar, but in truth they're really not.
I think the thing is as well is that when we're signing players from European leagues, a lot of fans, without wishing to do anybody a disservice or anything, don't necessarily know the quality to the same sort of level as they do the America. I mean, we know that it's the NHL, then the AHL, then the East Coast over there, and then the various other ones. But I think it's often difficult to remember. Well, this is for me anyway. Difficult to remember, quite where those other leagues sit in comparison to those leagues. So we're used to players coming out of the AHL or whatever. We know what that's standards like. But when we're signing somebody from DEL2 or wherever, it's not always as easy to actually know where they sit in that order.
I think that's a very good point, to be honest. Very good point.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I made
where are we in the food chain in that regards? I'd still say we're fairly low down.
I think we're getting better. I mean, you only have to look at Evan Mosey going to a Chicago Blackhawks affiliate to know that we are getting better. Look at Guy Lepine, who had some pre-season games with the Ottawa Senators last pre-season. So I think we are getting much better, and we seem to be getting a better calibre of player coming through. And I don't know, that's maybe where this expectation comes from, because you see other teams signing players that have great NHL, AHL experience, and with the greatest respect, we're probably signing signing players who've got experience in France, Italy, and that sort of league, but they're still scoring shed loads of points in those leagues, so there's no reason why they wouldn't score those points here in the Elite League. I don't think. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting season, but we will come to that a little bit later.
Didn't Jeremy Cornish go to an NHL training camp once?
He did. He went to Toronto Maple Leafs. I think.
Do they allow visitors then? Just come and watch. But anyway, move on.
I think we ought to. So Brian Schmidt announced his retirement. It was expected. He was umming and ahhing about whether to carry on for another season, but he did say at the end of last season that he probably was going to retire, and that was finally confirmed last week. Played 136 consecutive games for Panthers in all competitions, so a bit of an Iron Man. I mean, Andy, he's the sort of player that we are going to miss.
Yeah, definitely. He was solid. He did exactly what we needed, what any team needs. And, he's going to be a loss because we'll miss not only the type of player that he was, but the leader in the changing rooms and on the ice. And by all accounts, an all-round good guy.
Yeah, I mean, Tina, he was one of your favourites last season.
Well, I wouldn't exactly say he was one of my favourites, but he was a guy who he just came into his own last season. I don't think that the previous season was. I don't think we saw the best of him, and I was a little bit disappointed. And I will, happily admit that I'm wrong. I was a little bit disappointed about him, having re-signed with us. But he completely, proved me wrong, and I'm more than happy to be wrong about Brian Schmidt, to be perfectly honest. So 136 consecutive games speaks for itself, really.
I mean, Aaron, he was roundly criticised after his first season, but there wasn't many people criticising him after the season he had last time.
No, I mean, I would say potentially the most improved player over the 2 seasons, along with maybe Mosey, who's actually been training with the Blackhawks today, I believe. And I just think it's amazing that, not amazing, but it's a real credit to the guy. No offence to him, but a man at that kind of age, playing this kind of sport, cannot miss a game. It shows you the man that he is and how well he treats his body and looks after his body, that he played all those games consecutively. And, yeah, like I said at the beginning, just very, very well improved on his first season. Because, like Tina says, I don't think a lot of people were overly happy with him coming back, or it was a bit of a meh re-signing. But I tell you what, he's turned out to be a really good player for the Panthers.
I mean, Paul, considering Panthers' injury record over the past couple of seasons, to play every single game is something of a miracle.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, and like a lot of people have said, we're going to miss him on any number of levels. But he's made his decision, and I wish him well. Not that he listens to this, obviously, but
I think we all wish him well in whatever he decides to do. So that, of course, leaves one final defensive roster spot to fill. Now, Guy Lepine has been rumoured. I think that could be wishful thinking by quite a few people, but I think we'd be quite happy with that, wouldn't we, Paul?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's always the worry about players coming back after a period away and they never seem to be as good, or in a lot of cases. But I mean, I think Binghamton's have got a full defensive roster now, so it's not going to happen there. But yeah, it would be nice, but I mean, yeah, I think it is. I mean, like most of the rumours you tend to hear this time of year, it sounds like a bit of wishful thinking to me, but yeah, it'd be nice.
I mean, Tina, Guy Lepine still hasn't got a team signed up for next season. Could you see him back in Nottingham?
Well, the fact that he hasn't re-signed with anybody, that just fuels the fire, really, doesn't it? It's not out of the realms of possibility. I mean, I don't know the circumstances of him not re-signing with Binghamton, so I don't know if it's him wanting to move on, or them not wanting to continue with him in the roster. But I don't know. I mean, he clearly enjoyed his time here. He was a much better player when he left, and yeah, it could. Whether it will is obviously another story. But yeah, it just depends what offers he's getting over the pond, really, I suppose.
I mean,
you'd like to hope we've inquired, though, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Andy, for that last roster spot, do we need a big stay-at-home D-man to complete that defence, do you feel?
Yes.
Yeah, more than likely. Realistically, I think that's probably the one position that we perhaps haven't got nailed down, and obviously with Schmidt retiring, someone of decent size and strength who's going to just sort of stand in front of Wheatman and make sure he's protected and get the puck out away of the danger areas.
And Aaron, same question.
I want Jason Beckett.
I think he's retired.
Well, if we're doing that, I might read.
But I want a Jason Beckett type of player, to be honest. Not a goon, but was willing to have a fight, drop the gloves when needed, stood up for his teammates, went into the dirty areas, cleared the puck. Just a solid D-man that did his job well, but with no fuss. Badass Beckett, that's who I want.
I to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a dual national we get for that final spot, just so we can get them here without having to worry about a work permit or anything like that. So
it is getting a bit close, isn't it?
Yeah, because training camp starts on Monday, so first game next Saturday. So we will see. We will see what Corey pulls out of the bag. Other Panthers news since last time, and Panthers have a new marketing and communications officer. Callum Chalmers started his role a couple of weeks ago. Social media presence seems to have improved since his appointment, and Tina, you wrote an article for the Cats Whiskers website. You can get that www.thecatswhiskersonline.co.uk and just go to the blog section and you'll see Tina's article. And it has improved.
Yeah, it's definitely improved. He's engaging instantly with the fan base. He is trying to make improvements. It feels like it's flowing a little bit more as well. It's not often I'm sort of moved to write things, but I just sort of sat down one day and thought, yeah, do you know what, this is actually worth documenting. I mean, we spend a lot of time complaining about things, so why not write about something good that is actually happening? So I know he's been doing some filming for like a promo video today, so wait and see what happens there, but hopefully steers away from the cheese unless it's intended and goes full bore into it. But yeah, there's less to laugh about now. There's less for the other nine fan bases to laugh about at the moment. He's still finding his feet, but
I'm sure Clantastic will still have a go.
Yeah, but there's it just feels like it's something we can be a little bit more positive about, because we've just had a summer of almost nothing. It was just almost a deathly silence. I mean, one thing I would say on the back of the article that I wrote is, if I've sort of I didn't mean any disrespect to Eddie Suiki. It was the point I was trying to make is that when he came in, there was virtually nothing. It was just all of a sudden he appeared on a Checking It Out programme and nobody knew where he'd come from or who he, or what he was. And I think the Panthers did him a bit of a disservice there, and I think they've also done him a bit of a disservice with not indicating that he is working with Callum. Callum's actually had to contact us and tell us himself that he is working with Eddie. So I hope the two of them have a great partnership. And yeah, I think already, I personally feel a lot more positive about the social media presence of the Panthers.
I mean, Aaron, social media is one of your areas of expertise, so how do you feel it's gone?
One.
Thank you very much for that ringing endorsement, Johnny. I'm not gonna sort of like jump up and down and say it's the best thing that's ever happened, because to be honest, we wasn't doing a lot beforehand, so it couldn't really. The only way was up in that aspect, but I still think we can do more, and I know Callum has said that via his own Twitter page, etc. It's just a start, but we have fantastic, guys that take the images at Panthers Images. You've got stats wherever you look, infographics, graphic design, that kind of interaction with social media is just what most of the clubs are doing, and we're behind when it comes to that. Now, like Tina wrote and has said, it's hopeful, isn't it, that we're going to get to that level, and fingers crossed that we do, because that's where we should be. But for me, there is still so much more potential in what we could do via our social media accounts that, look, the season hasn't even started yet. Ask that question in a month, 2 months' time, and let's see what we've actually done different to what we have done in the past. And hopefully that starts, like Tina says, he's tweeted a photo regarding the intro video. Let's see how that is this year. But when it comes to the elite league clubs as a whole, we're not at the top of that when it comes to our social media. And that should be our aim, because it could bring so many more people into the arena, so many more fans that are on the edges that aren't quite hardcore Panthers fans that might turn into hardcore Panthers fans. So we've still got a long way to go in my eyes. And like I say, I think the best thing to say is it's a new fresh start. Let's see where we are in 1 month, 2 months' time. But the question I would ask as well is why do we always seem to get a new guy every season? We had Eddie at the beginning of last season. Now this Callum has come in, and like Tina says, it seems that they are working together. But before Eddie, there was one guy in charge of social media, and that's kind of aspect of it. If we're going to get to the top, then isn't it a good idea to get somebody in that role? And long-term plans. Where are we going to be in 2 years' time? Not in 1 week's time, but in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the line.
I think it is a long-term appointment from looking at the things he's putting out. He has got a title of Marketing and Communications Officer, and he has graduated. So that would seem that he is going to be in the role, or he has been given the role as a full-time job.
The only thing I would say with that is the same title that Eddie had beforehand, and it's the same title that the guy had before Eddie. Nobody should and could and underestimate the power of social media now. And if you do social media right, then you will see so much pluses for your business. And that is what we are. This is ice hockey is a business. The Panthers are a business. You should never underestimate it. And it's not. It's bigger than what I think. A lot of people think it actually is.
Paul, what do you think are the priorities he should concentrate on?
Replying to emails, and I'm not talking about the ones we've sent to them now. I'm talking from my own personal experience. I've contacted them 3 times in the last 2 years about. Well, one was asking about items in their charity auction. One was about another charity I'm involved in, which we'll talk a lot about as the year goes on. And I never received a reply. Nothing. Not a, sorry, we can't help you. Not a thank you for your email, we'll get back to you. Nothing. Nothing makes you feel as like you're being ignored as not getting a reply.
As being ignored.
As being ignored, yeah. But I think the thing that they really need to focus on is creating a club, because I don't feel that we are a club at the moment. I think we're a team and a bunch of people who go and watch them. And it for just the normal man in the street who only pays to go and watch the game, who isn't a shirt sponsor, who isn't a team sponsor or anything else. I just feel that there is a huge disconnect between us and them. It's we turn up, we open our wallets, we give them the money. That's all they're bothered about. There's no sense of belonging. There's no sense of connection between us and them anymore. Maybe it's the size of the club. I appreciate that makes things difficult. But for me, that's how I feel. Other people may feel differently. Rant over.
Andy, and how do you feel?
Well, I think from a personal standpoint, priority should be about engaging with the fans better with things that they want. But obviously, it's difficult because each person's completely different in what they want. Whilst some people are happy having a retweet of a bouquet of flowers that they've received, others sit there thinking, I don't care about this. Why aren't we doing infographics like Aaron said? Why aren't we doing more player interviews or vines or anything? Things like that are easily accessible and not necessarily newfangled now, because they're probably not now, but things that we should really be looking at doing. But it's each to their own. For every person that wants to see statistics, there's going to be people that would want to see pictures of the players smiling and celebrating, or socialising sort of pictures and things like that. So it's horses for courses, and I think it is difficult to try and get even a majority of what people want. But I think so long as it's varied, I don't think people will have too much of an issue. From my own personal thing, again, last season with the flowers, it was great. The first couple of times they did it, with regards retweeting all the pictures of happy people with the flowers, but it got a bit tedious when it was 15 retweets every match night. So it's trying to mix things up and trying to get the different aspects of what people want. For me would be the priority.
Okay.
And obviously retweeting my picture.
That you've got no chance, mate. Just before we move on to General Elite League stuff, a couple of responses from Antoine Marijon from Panthers Hockey Live. He agrees with you, Aaron, about Beckett, and you obviously like that because you've already retweeted it. And he's also sent us a picture of Cardiff Devils' new kit that is very different. They've actually not got the logo on there, which is surprising. So if you check out Cardiff Devils at Cardiff Devils on Twitter, you will be able to see the new Cardiff Devils jerseys. So on to the General Elite League questions for you all. So Elite League starts in just under a month. Most of the rosters are being completed as we speak. So I'll ask you all, who do you see being the challengers for the Elite League title based on the rosters so far? Aaron, we'll start with you.
I think it'll be Brayhead's year.
Okay. Yeah.
Lol.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Dave Sims.
Isn't it always Brayhead, dear?
Andy, what do you reckon?
One, who's going to win the league?
Yeah.
Sheffield.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I would have to agree because I just think they have the pedigree to do it. Tina?
They've got the pedigree and the confidence, unfortunately, but maybe the other big chokers, the Cardiff Devils, could maybe get something going in their new rink this season. So they would be my tip for this season.
Do you know how much offence you've just caused in Wales with that statement? Our Twitter's gonna light up. Finally, Aaron. Aaron,
you've said me.
Yes,
I said Brayhead.
Oh,
Brayhead.
yes.
We all laugh.
Sorry, Paul.
Oh, live podcasting, eh? Not Panthers.
So out of the other 9, any?
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, one of them. Come on, it's August. I ain't even been on holiday yet. It's August. How can you say who's going to win the league or not?
Because we do it every year.
And I doubt Edinburgh will probably struggle to win it.
Fair enough.
But apart from that, it could be any one of the other 8.
I think there's a consensus that Sheffield will make it 3 in a row. I mean, Aaron, you said Brayhead, but do you think Sheffield can make it 3 in a row?
Of course they can. Look, you've got Paul Thompson, one of the best coaches the Elite League has ever seen. It seems from the outside that the club does everything in their power to make sure they have the best opportunity to get that title. They've won it 2 years on the bounce. The motivation will still be there. And let's be honest, they will absolutely love it if they win it and they stop us as Panthers and everybody else and be the team that won it 3 years on a trot. So of course they could win it. But I do think Brayhead will will actually take it this year.
Will they have commemorative towels if they do?
I bet they'll have commemorative everything if they do. I mean, Paul, you said that it'll be one of the other 9, probably Edinburgh struggle, but do you think this is the season that Braehead could throw off their choker tag?
Possibly. They're putting together a fairly decent team, but we said that this time last year. So, there's a long way to go before we can sort of make statements like that.
Okay, fair enough. Also, we've got the Cardiff Devils. They seem to have recruited a lot of high scorers during the close season. So, Andy, I'll come to you. Do you think they can be considered one of the big teams?
Yeah. I think they have been one of the big teams past probably 3-4 seasons. And you could argue that if we are considered one of the big 4 teams, then they have every right to be considered one of the big 4 teams, considering that they, finish similar to us in the league, and usually at least make it to the finals, if not winning them. So yeah, I think they're one of the big teams. I'd class them as a big team more than Braehead. Currently, I still consider that currently at this moment in time the big 4 teams are as Sheffield, Cardiff, and Belfast. And don't get me wrong, I think what Braehead are doing is very good, and I don't think it will be long before they start pushing, for that status. But I think currently just the longevity of the other teams of being in those top positions, I think means that they are, still just outside of it. But give them 2-3 more seasons of finishing, between first and fifth consistently. And I think you're looking at a team that are going to be classed as one of the big boys.
I don't think you can really say, though, and this is in terms of Braehead, that you can you're one of the big teams if you've never actually won anything. Really,
but they challenge. They do challenge. To be fair,
but you can't say in a 10-team league, you can't say you're one of the big teams when you year after year you've come away with nothing. For all they've got their wall of fame or whatever they want to call it, they've not actually won anything apart from trophies that their owners bought, and they don't count.
Well, realistically, to make an analogy, would you consider Leicester being one of the big teams in the Premiership? No, not at all. But they've won it, granted, but they're still not one of the big teams in the Premiership by a mile.
No, I think that's actually a very fair point.
If they consistently perform now in the next sort of 4 or 5 seasons, so that they've got a history of performing at the top of the in the top 4 or 5 places consistently, then yeah, I'd agree Braehead are one of the big teams. But currently, I don't think they've done it long enough to be considered.
Another team considered one of the big boys, Belfast. They seem to have flown under the radar a little bit. They have made a couple of very good signings in the past couple of days, though. So, Tina, do you think they've flown under the radar? Or
not for me. No, they haven't for me. Ever since the signing of Jackson Whistle, that raised a lot of eyebrows, including mine. And I've been watching them since then. They're doing what they always do. They're recruiting well. They're recruiting, at a fit, steady pace. They're getting some good names in there. They've got a good mix of people, and yeah, they're just doing what they always do. To be perfectly honest, but I don't think, for me personally, they have flown under the radar.
Aaron, can you see any of the other teams making a challenge? So, anyone from the Gardner besides Braehead, or can you see Coventry coming up and making the challenge?
It's a tough one. I think not over, a 52 game season. I think there will be at times when you see, like a Dundee, maybe. I think they've recruited well again. Edinburgh is going to be interesting there, but I just think over the course of the season, I don't really expect any of those teams to be fighting for, first, second, and third. I just think the level of all the other teams have gone up, one or it's going to be. I think it'll be the best season that we've seen of the Elite League, but I can't see one of those lesser teams, as you called them, actually challenge for the league title.
Okay. Of course, pre-season games get underway this Saturday with both Cardiff and Sheffield in pre-season action. Do you feel the league's getting far more professional now when teams are starting training camps a full month before the season starts proper? I mean, we not so long ago, you'd have the team turn up, we'd have a pre-season friendly against Peterborough the Wednesday before the season started, and then we'd be away. But now it seems to be a far more professional affair. So, Andy, is that something you agree with?
Yeah, I think it is. Teams are buying into this whole, starting the season, hitting the ground running. And, they're getting players in nice and early. They're playing lots of fixtures pre-season to get fit. And I think it is a sign of professionalism. And, I think it's good for the league. It's ultimately, these guys are professionals and they're used to it. So it's kind of what you'd like to think these guys are expecting when they sign for us. And obviously, when they get told that they're coming in for one game on a Wednesday night before the season starts, I imagine some of them were quite shocked. But no, it is good.
And very quickly, and I'll ask you all in turn, so very quick answers because we are running out of time. Season starting on Saturday, or the pre-season on Saturday, so are we excited for the new season? Tina?
I'm always excited for the new season. I love getting back into the arena and catching up with all the people that you don't really stay in touch with during the summer, and just getting back into that whole hockey community feel. So yes, I am very excited. I've missed the game, I've missed the people, so I'm ready to get back into it.
Paul?
Not especially.
You're miserable, Git.
Any reason why? Quickly?
No, not really. I just think it's going to be another year where we're also Rans. We'll be lucky if we get a trophy.
Fair enough. Aaron?
We did ask me.
Well, no, it's fair enough. Aaron?
I'm more siding with Paul than I am Tina, to be honest. Indeed. I'm not overly excited. I'm not buzzing for the start of the season yet. So no, I'm enjoying the summer, and I'm sure when hockey comes out, I'll get excited. But at the moment, I can't say I am.
Andy?
Similar. I've got other important things coming up that I'm more excited about at the moment. Don't get me wrong, when it comes round, I'm sure it'll be great. But currently, at the moment, I'm enjoying myself, and it's not an inconvenience, put it that way. But
leave it to the happy clapper to make everybody happy again.
You said it.
I'm not ecstatically excited.
Very, very quickly before we go, we may remember on the last podcast we mentioned the UK Forum All-Stars that took place in Cardiff over the last weekend in July. They raised over £100,000 for 8 charities, which is an absolute phenomenal amount. When we spoke to Dave Grant on that show, they'd hit 80,000, I think. So to make 100,000 is an absolute phenomenal achievement. I think from all of us, a massive, massive congratulations. Anyway, that is it for another live podcast. We will be back before the start of the season, but very, very quickly, I want to say many thanks to Tina.
TTFN.
Paul.
Yep, thanks.
Andy.
Yeah.
And Aaron.
See ya.
And thank you to you all very much for listening. We are about to run out of time, so I think I've just got enough time to play the titles. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon on the Cats Whiskers podcast.